Welcome back to another video. I'm so excited because we're at projects. We did a lot so far. And so we're going to speak about how projects are used. And then again, at the end of all of this, we're going to have a come together moment of understanding how all these toolkits just fall in line with the process of our business. Well, projects are always going to be tied to a client. Okay, so that is first and foremost. You want to remember that a project is going to always be tied to a client. A lot of people ask, okay, well, how do I just have internal projects or internal things for me to do as tasks? That's going to be my task. Okay, so we're going to go to my task first. So your tasks are going to either be tied to a project or be private concerning only you, invisible to only you. So you can see the assignees here. It can be a client, it could be team members. I'm the only one in here, but it could be a client or it could be a team member or company. And yes, as we talked about inside the CRM, a company is an independent entity versus a client, which is an independent entity. So even if the primary contact is tied to that company, they will not see it on their client level. They will only see that task on their company level. That's important. It's a lot, but that's important. So if I wanted this to be a private task, I can make a private task for myself and I can add a title. And with a title, I can also assign that title with some of the estimates that I have, description tags, priority types, state statuses, and all the beautiful things here. I can also make this a reoccurring task. So maybe I have to check bank statements every Monday. I would do that for that sequence of every Monday. And I can have that to be endless. I can have that status automatically be classified or something once it starts and reoccurs. So that is how tasks work. Now, tasks essentially will also tie to your project. So if you do, or if you're assigned to a project, you will see the tasks for those projects in this list as well, because if they're assigned to you, well, they're your tasks. So it's my task. Now, going over to all tasks, if you are either a project manager, a super admin, or an admin, you will then see all the tasks assigned to anyone. And that's the beauty about this one. You have the ability to see client tasks, your tasks, team tasks, all of them, all of those things. They live here. All right. So it's just a conjoined space in order for you to see those things. And we already talked about what a task card looks like. So nothing changed here. It's the same thing. You probably have one or two more fields, like this example of this project field allows you to select the project that it's tied to. You'll also have the ability to add phases, which is above here, and you can add that phase based on the project itself. And then down here, you see a start and due dates. Followers is the biggest thing that's new here, and the followers is going to be who is able to see notifications and updates about this task. So it could be use the admin or a team member, and then the company, which is the client. All right, or whoever's added to the project as well. Jumping over to projects in itself, the projects don't come together until you have a template or a generator, but you can have a standalone project that you can create without any of those things, and you just add your own details. And I'm going to talk about what a template and a generator is in a second, but I'm going to give you the clean, stripped version of what projects are. Projects literally are just a space for you to track tasks. That's it. So you can have a project name, and within the project name, you can literally make it as simple as you want because this is going to be what shows up. You can do the status here. You can start the due date, start this, start the due date. You can have a project start date, an estimated completion date, and then you can continue down to all of the different details here, such as who has visibility to certain items. Like for example, the project information is only visible to the client, but then you have some other descriptions like back end stuff that you can do that's only visible to you guys as an internal staff. So you're going to assign this to either the client, you're going to assign this to the client, like either whoever the client that you want to do or the company. All right. So I kind of, let me go back a little bit because I don't want to confuse this. Okay. So it is always going to be assigned either to a client, which is going to be either company or client, because again, that word is very congruent. It's a duality. Then you have the ability to assign it to a secondary person as well. So maybe you want to have it assigned to Ivy, but you also want it assigned to Ivy herself. Like I be the company, I be the person. Then you have the teammates of who is assigned to the project, who can be designated items in the project. That's going to be the people that you add here, teams included. And then you have those task templates, which we're going to talk about, the based on date, which is we're going to talk about as well. I mean, we can talk about it here. It's just based on, do you want to have it based on today or tomorrow, the setting the date for that. Applying folder generators. So like when you generate this project, do you also want to have a project folder that you know is going to be a set structure each time? You have the business sectors that you can add there. You can customize those inside of this, the back end. You can do the value of the project. Of course, you can set that currency, and then you can also do some automations. So when you save this project, then you're going to be inside of that actual project that now you can add the task for. So inside of this is where it gets down and dirty because you have the ability to now just create tasks based on this project itself. And those tasks, as we mentioned, can be assigned to either now yourself, the team, or Ivy or the client themselves. So you can have a dual project for both people, which is fun. And then you can also add all the details for the project itself. So I'm going to actually set this up so you guys can see when I do some testing what happens here. We're going to assign this one to the company. And then we're going to do the other one, and we're going to assign that one over to the client. So gone ahead and did that. And then now you can see different structures inside of here. So Kanban is if you wanted to utilize like a board view. You have phases, which we spoke about before. Phases are just, I guess phases in this general sense are just ways to see the statuses or maybe your customized statuses in this approach. You can have timers, so you can essentially do time against the project or time against a task, and that always has to have an hourly rate. And you can either count, meaning you start it and then you come back and you stop it, or you have a manual amount that you can put in here. And then you also have the ability to assign it to a project or overall just specific tasks if you wanted to. You have the calendar, so this takes you directly back into the calendar view. And it gives you the ability to see the overall task due dates, which is really fun. You have files, which I love because in files, you're able to actually see all the files on the project, or you can see private files that only you and the team can see. And you can also see any files that the client submitted, and you can see files per task. Team talk is where it all happens, where you guys can communicate specifically on this project, for this project, about this project, in the project. Okay, it's very detailed, so you can add a thread-like type of conversation. So you can say this is the conversation that you start on, and then you can continually reply on that same message if you want to continue the conversation here, or you can create a new thread-like message that kind of keeps it up. The beauty of this as well is if you want the ability to have your team or your clients or anyone be able to do this outside of the system, you're going to want to go over to organizational settings, and then you're going to want to go down to where it says privacy convenience settings, and you're going to want to make sure all three of these are checked. I would say typically if you have any HIPAA compliance issues, you want to make sure you read this little box first. But this just allows them to conveniently respond inside of their email instead of having to sign back in to the account, unless you condition them to always sign into the account to communicate. Client talk is the same thing as team talk. It's just allowing you to communicate directly to the client. They get this notification and they get that message. And so same thing with the thread-like views. You can respond on this one thread, and if they respond via email, it still adds to the thread. So that's all the beauty there. And then notes, as you may have believed, you can make notes visible to either yourself, or you can make it visible to the public or shared with a specific person. And that all gets threaded here specifically on this project. And then the settings are very unique to this project as well. You have overall settings in which we're going to talk about, but these settings are specific to this project. So on each project, if you wanted the client to see all of the progress, or you want them to see the statuses, or you want them to see all of the actual tasks, you can do that. If you also want to hide that Canva view, you can hide that here. If you want them to see the project files, you can too. If you want them to upload, download, all the things, you can do that here. You can also allow freelancers, if you had a freelancer inside of your system, to do that here as well, to see all the things, the files. And then you have some project progression settings that you can go through. You also have some project automation. So once it's automatically, all the tasks are completed, it can mark it automatically completed, all the things. And then you have a view dashboard. Now, let me tell you about this dashboard, okay? So the dashboard is nice because you have the ability to do like all the custom fields that you want to, but I personally don't know if I like it, and it's because of where it's positioned. And I'm going to show you so you understand what I mean. So a dashboard in this case, let me refresh now because it's going to show up. It pops up here. It'll be the first thing they see, and this is the dashboard. What I added into that little box and that space was the placeholder that I had here. This can be a space that they come to for all the information. So if you wanted to make this a big blob of whatever, you can do that. But I don't really know if I like that. There's also this section here, which is specifically you can adjust as well, and that's the private notes, or the notes that you can put in there. And I prefer that over the dashboard, but it is an option, okay? It is an option. So you can have it that they go to there first, the dashboard, as a start page first, or you just disable it and just not use it at all. So that is all the specifics in a project. How do we start projects, right? So you can either start a project directly inside of the project's toolkit, or you can have a project get started based on some templates that we're going to look at now. So if a project gets started and you have a set task list that you always are doing, maybe we're going to call this one test, that you have a task list that you say, okay, I always got to check this, I always got to do that. This is always step one, this is always step two, this is always step three. You would want to create a template. When you create this template, you can assign this task to a person specifically before it's actually generated. So maybe you want to assign to the project leader, or maybe you want to assign it to a set person on the team, or maybe you want to assign it to their coordinator, which is their point of contact, in which you will have to make sure it's already set up inside of their CRM card prior to doing that, or a salesperson. So let's choose the coordinator in this beautiful sense here, and I'm going to hit add. And then I'm going to add another duplicate here just because, and we're going to leave those two here. Now, this in itself doesn't do anything, but when you go over to a generator similar to an on-demand generator or a proposal generator, you essentially get to do this through a flow of kickoff forms, or maybe different types of automations that you kick off. So you can do it through an auto template. You can do it through any type of automation process. And I want to say any type because it's very, very like vast to the degree if you can. You want to title it something. You can enable a schedule if you want it to be fancy. And then you can also have a title name that is custom. So you can have this to be their first name, their full name, a date, a placeholder that just makes sense for you. And then you can set the status on the initial starting of this. You can do the dynamic base generation. And this is where I was telling you guys about the project information. So in that space where I showed you on the second screen for project information, if you add any information here, this is going to show up in that task list section versus the dashboard. I just don't know if I like the dashboard, y'all, but I will deal with it. And so you can have that here. You can also have a initial project note, and then you can also do some of the other things here, like assigning that project. But you want to come down to this location here. And you want to assign that task list that you created, that template, and place it here. You can also do a templated folder generator as well. You can do the business sector. You can set up some automations, and you can do some other automations down here. So that's pretty much the gist here, okay? That's how it all works. And I love it because with the generator, If you know for sure you're going to always use that thing, always make sure the template is updated. And it only works if you are going to be making those updates accordingly. So if you update the template, but then you've generated 10 prior, it's not going to change what the prior templates were. That's just a note to make. Work requests are what I find to be the most important part of projects, because instead of having your clients fill out a form and then from that form you then have to create a task, a work request essentially is the easiest form for them to do this. And with a work request, you can actually add custom fields that does allow them to make custom selections. So maybe you have, and you could change the work request name too as well to make it say ticket or something else. So you can have a work request subject, then you have who exactly is this work request for. Again, it's the client or the company. The description, you have the request date. You can have them attach any item. Once they do that, you can also, I almost missed a button, and I did miss a button. You can also say that if this is related to an existing project, you can have them select that here. You can also disable this if you want to, but that doesn't automatically align it anywhere. It just places it as a placeholder. And you can have some request messages, which is a comment that's added here as well. Now, the beauty of this is that you can convert this bad boy into a invoice, an estimate, or a project. And that project can be new or existing, which means that if it's existing, it will be generated as a task. And so that task now will then be generated with that item, and you can then assign it accordingly and do all the things. So it's already an existing project, but it just gives you that ability. Once you have converted it to a new project, it removes, or an existing project, it removes those options automatically. And the only things you have left are the other two things. So either an estimate or an invoice. But if let's say that you're already converted, it's all good, then you can archive it over. I would say just do that. You can also change these statuses automatically once it is like converted to closed, and that you can do in the settings. We're going to go there a second. Timers are all over here. So if you did track time in any way, either manual or you did it through the tracking timer, like the actual, it's tracking your time, then you can go ahead and invoice most on those, and you can add them to accumulating invoices as well. Archived is where you archive all those requests for projects as well as work requests. And then settings, oh Lord, we're going to get into this one. Settings is very unique because you have, again, those layers for that project by project settings, but this is the global settings where it affects every project that you do futuristically. And so in this case, a lot of them are defaulted not to be on, but if you do want them on, let me tell you what these are. This allows all admins to see projects. This allows all project managers to see projects. This allows the clients to see all of their archive projects. This says, hey, I want you to see the progress of the project, and this says, I want you to see the status of the project. This is going to allow all the assigned individuals to that project see all the tasks of the project. This allows them to see the notes as a client and also create notes as a client. This is to calculate that progress using the percentage of the task marked complete. And then this is to display the percentage using a designated project status. So if you wanted to utilize a status specifically, it can automatically calculate it, or it can do a manual slider. You can also set the progress using a manual slide altogether. So that's something that could be useful if you wanted to just add projects unlimitedly, but say it's not at 100% until I say it is. Okay, that's what that is. And then this allows you to do an auto hide once a project is marked complete. So in plain terms, if a task is marked complete, then it won't show. But in this case, it does show if this is not enabled. And then this will say you will not be assigning any tasks to clients, so you can remove the clients feature out of there. And this prevents clients from actually creating their own tasks. This hides the Kanban, and this does any type of task approval. It will notify either the staff or the team. And then down here, you have some reminder emails for when projects are due dates are missed, or when a project is complete. Continually just reminding you until that date. Then you also have the default currency and then the settings related to the automation. So automatically closing a project once all the tasks are complete, or changing the status once it's all complete. That was a lot. That was good though. Notifications are important as well because at a first glance, You're going to get every notification when a project is set up. So you want to come here first, really, and you want to make sure that you take off the I'm assigned to a project and I'm assigned to a task. Because if you're assigned to 20 tasks, you're going to get 20 emails. Plus, you're going to also get an email about you being assigned to a project. If a new comment is added to a task, this is what that does. It just says, hey, you get an email to say you got a new comment. If this task is updated, you will get an email for that. And then when a file is uploaded, you'll get an email for that too. So that is it's a lot, y'all. You want to take these off, you can, but I would say leave the emails for the messaging in regards to the actual client talk and team talk, and leave on the I'm assigned to a project so that you know that a new project was actually generated. These email digests can be overwhelming as well, but they are helpful to include the history if you want to do a digest of the past. And then this is helpful to review tasks that are coming up. So you can set the dynamics of when these go out, if it's weekly or if it's going to be daily. I would say if you're a person that needs to always have a forecasting of what your task would be, that's important. The biggest thing is that you can actually set these same task like notification settings for all of your roles, and you can then override those settings to make sure that it's set for each of them. So it's not like weird that they come in, they get all these notifications. The project dashboard settings is a default if you want to turn it on and off. And then the work request setup is very simple. I'll go through this a little bit slowly as well. So over here, you can disable the work request functionality altogether, or you can leave it enabled. You can allow the clients to choose from existing projects, or you can take it off. So that was that checkbox that gave me the two test options. You can allow them to attach a file, and you can make that file mandatory if it's something that they need to always do. You can automatically change it into close once a project or an estimate or invoice is done. And then you can also change the status to convert it into a task. So whatever the task is converted, it can say assigned or whatever that is. Okay. Then you have the ability to do freeform or itemized. And really and truly, I don't use either unless it's like maybe a change order or something, right? And they need to select items from. You can then create those items in this setting here. And then you have the work request notification. So you can either be notified as the client's coordinator or the admin and the client's coordinator, or you can just get no notifications at all. Work request items can be updated here, and then the business sectors can be updated here. That was a mouthful, but y'all are through it. You did it. I try to make these videos slow and quick, but I know I talk fast, but it's because there's a lot of information and you have this video for a lifetime. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Come back and we're going to do marketing.